Happy 2019, everybody. Let's talk about 2018. Today, we're going to be going over my personal top games of the year. I'm sure the majority will say something else, but that's fine by me. These are my top picks. Now, let's start with the negative and work our way up to the positive. I know a lot of people want to talk about Fallout 76, and there was a lot to talk about. We unpacked quite a bit. Whilst a lot of people want to say that Fallout 76 was the worst game of the year, and as much as beating that dead horse for, another few months would get some people's jollies off, I made a prediction regarding the game back in March. I get to be a smug jackass about it now, because I was right. But the thing is, if I told you that Fallout 76 was the worst game I played in 2018, I'd be lying to you. That is to say, the honor of the worst game of 2018 has to go to Sea of Thieves. Just kidding, I didn't even touch that game. I looked at what they were offering and said it isn't even worth playing. No, it had to be The Quiet Man. I didn't buy The Quiet Man, rather it was, how shall we say, hoisted upon me by a friend, and I didn't much care for it at all. As in, it was barely a video game, and that's quite a shame if you think about it, because The Quiet Man was also the name of one of my favorite movies ever made.
The Quiet Man. He's John Wayne. It's the story of Sean Thornton, a right-intended man who came from America to forget his past in Innisfree. There he met a fiery red-headed lass, and the village marriage broker went to work.
They're like a... Easy now. Have the good manners not to hit the man until he's your husband, and entitled to hit you back.
For all my complaints of Fallout 76 being a terrible, buggy, unplayable mess toward the 50 to 60 hour mark, the first 50 hours I played were damn fun, at least for me. Now, all of the marketing shenanigans that went around it, and all the allegedly criminal things that went on with mismarketing and mismanagement of the project as a whole, setting all that aside and just judging it on the merits of a video game, I feel that there's more video game in Fallout 76 than there is in The Quiet Man. That's why The Quiet Man takes worst game of the year. And to be honest, I simply didn't indulge in a wide variety of games this year. I mean, I looked at things like Red Dead Redemption 2, for instance, and I said, where's the PC release? And they said, no, you gotta buy a console. And so I said, maybe I'll play it at my friend's house. And other people asked me about Super Smash Bros. I quite enjoyed the original Super Smash Bros. As well as the one for GameCube. However, I saw no need to play any more of it after that. Quite frankly, it was an enjoyable party game for its time, but much like Pokemon, after the first couple times doing the exact same thing, I was done with it. It's kind of like Call of Duty. I had the same mentality in that. Oh, the first two are kind of okay. What are these other ones? No, thank you. A lot of these franchises, I tend to do that. I don't quite know why Elder Scrolls Fallout and Saints Row haven't affected me in the same way. Probably because of the individual quirks of each game. So, getting into the good games, I was a huge fan of Monster Hunter World. I only played it for about 35 hours roughly, but I enjoyed every moment of it. And a lot of the game really just boils down to timing your dodge rolls or your leaps or whatever other abilities are tied to your character. I mean, at the very, very beginning of the game, you see these big T-Rexes. You can, in fact, with the starting gear, take on one of those T-Rexes without a problem. It's just that you have to know what you're doing and you have to notice the monster's telegraphed attacks, which it turns out they do telegraph everything pretty well, not through the user interface or anything, but how the monster's model works. I would say that the cooking cats in this game are the most adorable things ever created, and that whether you're playing alone or with friends, the game is definitely worth checking out. Monster Hunter World is definitely something I'm going to revisit eventually, for fun. Vermintide 2 is a game I have spent a lot of time with. The idea behind Vermintide is it takes place in the Warhammer Classic Fantasy universe during the end times, when the Chaos Gods had decided to end the game and more or less destroy the world at that point. That was supposed to lead us into the Age of Sigmar, where we were going to buy models, but I don't ever care to buy Warhammer models or what do you call them, figurines. Magic the Gathering taught me a valuable lesson when I was younger about all the collectible games. Don't. That's what it really comes down to, just don't. But Vermintide 2 follows off right where Vermintide 1 ended, where you're playing as a group of 1 of 4 characters in a Left 4 Dead style situation, except instead of hordes of zombies, you end up with hordes of rat men. Well, now, thanks to the Chaos God of Pestilence, we have hordes of zombies and hordes of rats working together in what are called the Pack Sworn, and a bunch of other mini-bosses to complement the already existing Left 4 Dead style gameplay. Now, unlike Left 4 Dead where everyone's the same, and it's just what weapons you pick up that define how you play differently, in Vermintide 2, you pick as 1 of 5 characters, each with 3 subclasses, and each with a variety of weapons that you can choose. Melee weapon, ranged weapon, charm, trinket, and necklace in order to gear up your character. And as you play, you earn more gear, which causes your character to be stronger in various ways, or more resilient, or, you know, with various high-end effects, you could potentially make a hammer that's good at blocking, or a shield that's good at bashing, get a trinket that gives you a 25% chance not to consume a healing item when you use one. Things like that that actually change up the game and make it more interesting. The game features loot boxes with the full-on gambling animations. The thing is, you can't buy those loot boxes for real-life money at all. You just earn them through gameplay. So, whilst the loot boxes are there, the unboxing animations are there, you get the highs and lows of basically gambling. There is no real-life money investment in the entire endeavor other than buying the initial game or the various DLCs that came with it. The DLCs being packs of 3 to 4 levels. In the case of the last one, 3 levels and then a 4th secret level that unlocks if you do all of the things. My favorite character to play as in Vermintide is Bardin. I've maxed out his hero power and levels completely. He has red weapons. In short, I've enjoyed the game thoroughly. Not so much with the other classes. I'm going to be honest, Vermintide 1 had me diversifying into other classes more. Whereas in Vermintide 2, I tended to focus specifically on Bardin tank. That's it, the tank mode of Bardin, and I enjoyed that a lot. So moving on from Vermintide 2, we have Iconoclasts. Iconoclasts is an almost overly simplistic 2D side-scrolling Metroidvania type game. The thing is, it is heavily story-driven. And by that I mean they talk about religion and the power structures of the world they live in. Everything the main character is doing in terms of side-scrolling platforming is just to get from one story section to the other. She features with a pistol and a wrench, and the wrench allows her not only to operate machinery in the environment, but also to grab onto things in the environment and swing with them. To say that more abilities unlock as you play the game would be an understatement. I'm not going to talk about this one very much because a story-driven game can really only be played through once and get the same experience. That's why I'm not delving into the story. It's something you should check out yourself. It is, again, overly simplistic in its presentation, but it's playing with the themes on a deeper level despite being, again, basic in its presentation. But if you want to ignore the story, skip all the story sections, and just play the Metroidvania-style platforming, it's still a fun game. Not as good as another one I'm going to list later, but pretty still high up there. So while we're on the topic of 2D side-scrolling platformers, I would be remiss not to mention Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. Anyone who knows about the ongoing project Bloodstained Ritual of the Night that was supposed to be out a couple years ago but isn't, that particular project was done by the creator of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. He's trying to recreate Symphony of the Night in a legally distinct way for people who want more Symphony of the Night in their lives. What Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is looking to become, however, is a combination of Order of Ecclesia Portrait of Ruin, and Symphony of the Night combined. And I'm fine with that. Everything looks great so far. And I'm absolutely fine with them taking their time on this Kickstarter because I'd rather it be done right than be done fast. Now, what I mentioned, Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, is not Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, but rather the people who made Mighty No. 9, hilarious stuff, Inti Creates. Let's just say that the person who was driving Mighty No. 9 creatively was not very good. Thankfully, if you put that studio to the task of 2D side-scrolling platformers, like the Mega Man Zero series, for instance, or Mega Man ZX, it turns out to be a really good experience. Hell, even right before Mighty No. 9 came out, they released Azure Striker Gunvolt, which was a much better Mega Man style game. So putting that all into consideration, after Mighty No. 9's colossal flop, the studio went on to make Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. Bloodstained Curse of the Moon is an amazing return to form. If you've ever played Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse, you will know Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. Because functionally speaking, in terms of game design and teaching the player and things of that nature, it really is a modernized version of Castlevania 3. It retains the retro look, as in it is designed to look like an NES game. We're not talking about other developers who will go, well, I don't have an artist, so I'm just going to smack some pixels together. We're talking about this was intentionally drawn, intentionally crafted to look just like an NES game, although the things that go on the screen wouldn't have been possible on an NES. The hardware limitations would have maxed out with that many sprites and that much sprite detail. So it's almost the dream of what an NES could achieve, not actually what an NES could achieve. It's beyond it. Bloodstained Curse of the Moon has you taking on the role of Zanketsu, an exorcist who is out to kill Gremory, an ancient demon that has cursed him. For those who are familiar with Castlevania, Gremory takes the place of Death as the second in command for the Dark Lord's forces, although during your first playthrough, Gremory will be the final boss. As you progress through the game, you will defeat bosses and free people who are trapped by those bosses. Those people can then join your party, and you can switch between them on the fly, Castlevania 3 style, except you are expected to switch between them much more often, and they will give you access to alternate routes. So each stage is actually much, much larger and supports multiple playthroughs because different characters can get to different locations. The ending of the game will change depending on who you choose to recruit. When you rescue a character from a boss, you can either recruit them, ignore them, or kill them, and your choices will influence the ending. Though if you want to try the best versions of the game, first try recruiting everyone and beating the game, or alternatively try killing everyone and beating the game as Zanketsu alone. Both will unlock alternate game modes. The one where you rescue everyone, by the way, unlocks a really good one called Nightmare Mode, which is a direct story sequel to the first playthrough. All in all, I'd say that Bloodstained Curse of the Moon is the second best side-scrolling platformer I have played this year. So last on our list of 2D side-scrolling platformers that have come out this year, we have Celeste. Celeste was very close to my game of the year this year. Celeste is a game that features a story I won't be talking about, but you are driven to climb a mountain. Now, the game itself is of, I want to say, moderate difficulty, and it encourages you to make use of wall climbing, wall jumping, air dashing, and various other things that other games use in moderation. Celeste uses a lot of. The game is extremely forgiving, and almost any time you die, you will always return to the beginning of that particular section. Think about it like checkpointing enhanced, to where if you fail to do a wall jump followed by a wall grab, followed by a series of dashes, followed by another wall grab, followed by an air dash to jump onto a platform which will propel you up, assuming you failed to do all of those things in rapid succession, hit a pit of spikes, you'll start back at the beginning of that sequence of events to try again. It will not make you go through multiple sequences of events without having a form of checkpoint. So every major challenge that you are introduced to in a place where you will not lose progress. I can't say the same for Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, where you get set back quite a bit depending on your deaths, which is absolutely fine. I enjoyed Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. However, in Celeste, the platforming challenges are really extreme by comparison. Whereas Bloodstained Curse of the Moon had you fighting first and then exploring second, Celeste takes that exploration and ramps it up 300%, forgoing combat in favor of having a young girl climbing a mountain. Without spoiling any of the story, that's basically what this is. They have other optional remixed versions of levels that you'll gain access to later, and the game just keeps getting harder as you progress through it, which is great. And again, unlike Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, where everything tries to look authentically Nintendo Entertainment System era, Celeste pushes both its art and sound to be more stylized, and I'm fine with that. Celeste is an experience that I absolutely want to play again. I just, again, lack the time to do so. However, my game of the year, oddly enough, is Kingdom Come Delivery. I've done a review of the game, which made some people laugh. I had other people shouting at me, "You don't know the secret of why Henry gets treated so well." Of course, I knew the secret. I was talking from a thematic standpoint of why the game seems to favor Henry far too much. Just because something can be explained does not mean it's excused. That's an important distinction people don't seem to understand, is you can tell me why something is the way it is in the storyline, but I can turn around and then say, but the story would have been better if it weren't a thing. And in the case of Kingdom Come Deliverance, it is not a perfect game, and nothing on this list is perfect. What Kingdom Come Deliverance managed to do was immerse me in a fantasy world of Henry of Skalitz, who was able to rise to greatness from the life of a dirt farming peasant. And it also let me laugh a lot at just how clunky and broken the game was. Unlike other games I may have mentioned earlier in this year, it does cross into the so bad it's good territory with certain encounters. And those horribly broken and disjointed events turn out to be in the game's favor. They're hilarious. The game is, once again, far from perfect, but the overall experience was enjoyable. It had just enough role-playing elements with just enough hack and slash thrown in. Say the combat is clunky would be an understatement, but once your combat skill goes up enough and once you get good enough gear, well, the game just becomes an open-world sandbox with a very, very heavy story-based campaign. I could spend just as much time criticizing the game as I could praising it, but at the end of the day, it still is my top game of the year. And I'm not entirely sure how to feel about that. Was 2018 a good year for video games? Well, I did play Data Boy, that is the God of War game, and I enjoyed that. Not enough to put it on this list, mind you. I enjoyed Dead Cells to a certain extent, but it's something I really need to revisit before I can do a proper judgment on it. So again, not on this list. Red Dead Redemption 2 is something that I will have to play later, but until they do a PC release, I have no inspiration to buy it. Honestly, the majority of my gaming time this year has been taken up between Skyrim, Fallout 4, Fallout 3 in New Vegas. You know, the games we've been playing for the past 7 years or more. Some Morrowind. I'm trying to think if there's anything else on my list that I've forgotten. But, I mean, other than Warframe, where, you know, at this point I'm Mastery Rank 25, they stuck a badge on my profile to say, oh, you're a beta tester. Like, yeah, I was a beta tester, thanks. I mean, Warframe is by far my favorite grindy game right now. Although I have my eye on Asheron's Call, because it's the emulated servers just got a huge update, so I'm going to have to do a video about that eventually. I did a couple Asheron's Call live streams, and I was thoroughly satisfied having messed around with the game. on the emulated servers. You throw in some real life work and the fact I'm married and I really just didn't have time for much else. I think looking at my Steam list, my major regrets are not having played enough Wizard of Legend or Ghost 1.0 to really put a judgment on those. I would say that the new Path of Exile League has been spectacular, but like with almost every other league, I get to maps, I work my way up toward the Shaper, and then I quit. Although I have to say the Immortal Syndicate fights are pretty challenging. It was a good league, for sure. And there are tons of games that I want to talk about that didn't come out in 2018. Games that came out in 2017 or 2016. Games that came out long before that. And we will talk about them. I'll do videos and stuff. For now, though, I'm done. We do need to take a moment and think about this year, though, in games. Because while EA seems to be producing some kind of half-assed version of Destiny and Warframe with beautiful-looking environments and some of the most uninspired gameplay I've ever seen, we have Activision Blizzard, which spent the better part of the year trashing its reputation. From Diablo Immortal, to destroying Heroes of the Storm, to laying off huge numbers of their employees or paying them to quit, whatever you want to call it. Activision Blizzard took a huge chunk of the year in order to trash its reputation in the gaming space. In less than 4 weeks, though, Bethesda managed to trash their reputation with not only Fallout 76, because Fallout 76, again, I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, I enjoyed it for about 50 hours, but look at everything that has surrounded the game. The bugs, the glitches, and the fact that they were proud of it, the statements they made. Let's be honest here. This has been a disaster. From them not fulfilling their promises, like what was on the box, their advertising, to them refusing to refund people's money, to them trying to buy people off with Adams, the Adams store getting worse all the time, where now there are 2 days left offers as if this were some kind of mobile game, some free-to-play game that people paid full price for. Oh, it's half off. You know, we could go over this again and again and again, and I haven't even finished talking about the things that Bethesda has screwed up, but they screwed up these things in rapid succession. Each individual thing may be minor, but it compounded upon itself to where they trashed their reputation in the gaming space, and they did it so quickly. Again, you know, you can see my opinion back in March, where I knew this wasn't going to be a good thing, but I had no idea that it was going to be a bad thing to this degree. My not so high personal opinion of Bethesda back then, I just had no idea they were capable of screwing it up this much. I'll have links to the Bethesda Circus and my earlier prediction video down in the video description if you missed it somehow. And I'm going to get back to playing some games. Happy 2019, everyone. Hopefully it isn't as bad as 2018. Well, if it is, you'll hear me talk about it, that's for sure. If it isn't, you'll hear me talk about it, so I guess we'll be here. Y'all have a good one now.